Behind the heavy gilded doors of Clarence House, a single sheet of paper shattered the Queen Consort's carefully manufactured reality. What Camilla just realized, staring at a routinely updated security ledger bearing the unmistakable seal of the Prince of Wales, is that her ultimate attempt to isolate the Princess of Wales has resulted in her own devastating eviction. She had submitted a quiet administrative mandate designed to systematically strip Carole Middleton of her unrestricted access to the royal estates, expecting the paperwork to slide through the bureaucracy unnoticed. Instead, she received forensic proof that her authority had been entirely overridden, rendering her a powerless spectator in her own court. This is the story of a high-stakes institutional purge, executed not with shouting matches or public scandals, but through the ruthless weaponization of administrative protocol. In less than 48 hours, what began as a stealthy bureaucratic maneuver by the Queen Consort was inverted into a lethal weapon of institutional containment. By the end of this video, you will understand the secret administrative mechanism Camilla attempted to weaponize against Catherine's mother, how Prince William discovered the paper trail, and the chillingly quiet retaliation that left Camilla structurally isolated. You will see exactly how the illusion of absolute power shatters when confronted with the unyielding reality of the true bloodline. To understand the sheer weight of this psychological collapse, we must first look at the illusion of absolute power Camilla spent decades meticulously constructing. For 30 years, her trajectory within the House of Windsor was a masterclass in patient, calculated survival. She successfully navigated the wreckage of the 90s, weathered the enduring public adoration for Princess Diana, and slowly managed to rewrite her own narrative from the most criticized woman in Britain to the anointed Queen Consort. She operated under the comfortable delusion that wearing the crown and sleeping in the palace granted her absolute equity in the institution. Her long-term strategy relied heavily on the gradual erasure of the past, rewriting the visual memory of the monarchy by placing her non-royal children and extended family members at the center of state events. She treated her proximity to King Charles as a shield of absolute permanence. She assumed that as long as the king held the scepter, her authority to mold the monarchy's inner circle was untouchable. This sense of absolute security bred a dangerous level of confidence, leading her to believe she could dictate the internal hierarchy of the palace without facing any resistance from the younger generation. The catalyst for this current crisis emerged during a period of profound vulnerability for the Wales family. As Catherine, the Princess of Wales, stepped back from public life to focus entirely on her health and recovery, a subtle vacuum of power opened within the palace walls. During these difficult months, Carole Middleton stepped in, becoming the quiet, unshakable fortress protecting her daughter and her grandchildren. Carole's daily presence at Adelaide Cottage was a lifeline for the Wales family, offering stability, uncomplaining service, and fierce maternal protection. To the Queen Consort, however, Carole Middleton's deeply entrenched unconditional influence was perceived as a structural threat. Camilla saw the tight-knit unity of the Middleton family as a rival power base that needed to be contained. Recognizing that she could not openly attack a mother caring for her recovering daughter without sparking massive moral outrage, Camilla's faction opted for a staggering exploitation of palace protocol. They sought to achieve their goals through the boring, invisible machinery of estate management. Camilla quietly initiated a staggering institutional overreach. Under the guise of streamlining security budgets and protecting the king's privacy during his own health battles, her office submitted a formal protocol revision to the Royal Protection Command. The mandate requested the immediate revocation of Carole Middleton's unrestricted diplomatic clearance across the Windsor and Sandringham estates. It was a highly sophisticated bureaucratic attempt to subject Catherine's mother to the humiliating process of applying for temporary visitor passes. By forcing Carole to endure security checkpoints, register her vehicle, and await formal clearance for every visit to Adelaide Cottage, Camilla was attempting to downgrade the Middletons to the status of mere public guests. It was a calculated strategy to rewrite the visual and administrative hierarchy, sending a clear message that no matter how essential Carole was to the future queen, Camilla was the ultimate gatekeeper of the royal perimeter. She believed that by controlling the physical space, she could slowly isolate Catherine and assert the supremacy of her own shadow court. However, Camilla drastically underestimated the forensic vigilance of the modern Prince of Wales. Prince William does not govern through emotional outbursts or media leaks. He governs through the precise, unforgiving machinery of estate management and constitutional law. His silent, enduring grief for his mother has forged him into a fierce, uncompromising protector of the women he loves. He understands that the survival of his family relies on absolute boundary control, and he monitors the administrative ecosystem of the monarchy with unyielding discipline. The discovery of this administrative trap happened during a routine briefing on estate security allocations. As the absolute controller of the Duchy of Cornwall and the heir to the throne, William regularly reviews the deployment budgets for the Metropolitan Police's Royalty and Specialist Protection Branch. When he and his top advisors were presented with the revised access roster originating from the Queen Consort's office, the true nature of the strategy became instantly clear. William recognized that this was not an innocent update to the security diary. It was a direct, calculated assault on his wife's support system during her most vulnerable hour. For William, the threat to the integrity of his family was deeply personal, but his institutional response would be entirely professional, cold, and devastatingly precise. He did not storm into Clarence House, nor did he demand a dramatic confrontation with his father. He understood that in the world of high stakes, royal diplomacy, the most brutal blows are delivered through protocol space and quiet isolation. Utilizing his unyielding authority as the direct heir, William set a silent counter-strategy into motion. He bypassed the Queen Consort's office entirely and went directly to the highest echelons of the royal security apparatus. He recognized that the only way to defeat a bureaucratic attack was to weaponize the system itself, using the rigid parameters of state-funded protection to construct an invisible wall around the people he trusted most. The retaliation was executed through the quiet signatures of senior security officials. William legally authorized an unprecedented lifetime security mandate that granted Carole and Michael Middleton irrevocable, unrestricted access to all royal properties falling under the jurisdiction of the Prince of Wales. He established a permanent security bubble around the Middleton family that simply could not be pierced by the Queen Consort's administrative meddling. This detail matters immensely because it not only restored Carole's access, but it legally elevated her clearance to a level that outranked Camilla's own extended family. William enforced a strict pre-existing constitutional mandate regarding taxpayer-funded protection, ensuring that Camilla's personal guests would face the exact bureaucratic hurdles she had tried to impose on the Middletons. With a single stroke of an administrative pen, the clearance for Camilla's shadow court was completely neutralized. The trap officially snapped shut during a seemingly routine morning briefing at Clarence House. Camilla was handed the newly finalized security directives, expecting to see her containment strategy officially codified. She fully anticipated reading the confirmation that Carole Middleton had been effectively locked out of the inner circle. Instead, her eyes fell upon a protocol document that visually and legally cemented the Middletons' untouchable status, signed with the absolute, undeniable authority of the future king. As Camilla stared at the heavily authorized paperwork, the magnitude of her miscalculation became blindingly clear. The realization hit her with the force of a physical blow. She had reached for the ultimate lever of state power to isolate her rival, only to discover that she had fundamentally triggered her own administrative eviction. She was forced to confront the terrifying reality that despite the glittering crown on her head, she was trapped in a system where her title carried absolutely no structural leverage against the cold, permanent reality of the true heirs. The suffocating silence that filled the private study at Clarence House was the exact moment the tectonic plates of the British monarchy permanently shifted. As Queen Camilla held the newly minted security directive bearing the undeniable lifetime authorization of Prince William for the Middleton family, the illusion of her ultimate dominance completely evaporated. She had attempted to use the boring, invisible machinery of palace administration to evict her rival from the royal perimeter. Instead, she was holding the forensic proof that her own authority had been cleanly and surgically decapitated. In a state of quiet panic, masking her shock beneath a veneer of aristocratic composure, she turned to the one person who had spent 30 years legitimizing her ambition. She walked into King Charles's private quarters, demanding an immediate intervention. Camilla presented the security ledger to the king with the expectation of absolute sovereign outrage. She demanded that Charles immediately overrule his son, revoke the lifetime clearance granted to Carole Middleton, and assert his supreme authority over the estate's protection command. She desperately needed her husband to prove that her position as Queen Consort meant she held equal equity in the kingdom, and that her directives could not simply be erased by the heir to the throne. She waited for him to pick up the telephone summon the Lord Chamberlain and forcefully re-establish her shadow court at the apex of royal life. But what she received instead was the ultimate psychological betrayal. As Camilla finished her demand, King Charles simply looked down at his desk, offering a heavy, devastating silence. The king, navigating the profound vulnerabilities of his own health and acutely aware of the fragile architecture of his reign, did absolutely nothing. He did not reach for the phone. He did not challenge his son. Charles is a pragmatist who understands the unyielding, cold physics of the crown better than anyone. He knows that he is merely a transitional monarch, and that the future popularity and stability of the House of Windsor rest entirely on the shoulders of William and Catherine. To overturn a legally sound, financially audited security protocol regarding the Princess of Wales's own mother would not just provoke an internal constitutional crisis, it would publicly expose the king's diminishing grip on the institution, engaging in a factional war against his own heir to indulge his wife's territorial ambitions was a battle the current sovereign knew he could not win. Charles made the cold, calculated decision to look away. He chose the quiet survival of the bloodline over the immediate comfort of his wife. For Camilla, realizing that her absolute protector would abandon her to the bureaucratic machinery of the palace was a psychological death blow. This chilling silence from the king exposed the terrifying reality of what royal insiders describe as her profound commercial desperation. It is incredibly easy to be blinded by the majesty of the royal standard, the sweeping velvet robes and the glittering tiaras. The public sees the Queen Consort and assumes she sits atop an empire of unimaginable wealth and permanent privilege. But the forensic financial truth is staggering. Queen Camilla actually owns virtually nothing of the royal empire she sought to control. The true economic engine of the monarchy, the billion-dollar Duchy of Cornwall, belongs entirely and absolutely to Prince William. It is William who controls the massive portfolio of land commercial contracts and liquid revenue that funds the private and charitable endeavors of the future crown. Furthermore, William's office now exerts massive, undeniable influence over how the sovereign grant and state security budgets are audited and deployed. When Camilla attempted to alter the estate security parameters, she forgot that she was playing with financial machinery she does not own. She is, in the coldest legal terms, a highly titled guest residing in properties managed by a system that ultimately answers to her stepson. By legally cementing Carole Middleton's unrestricted access, William sent a clear, untraceable administrative message. He reminded Camilla that every inch of protected ground her own guests walk on, every security pass they swipe, and every armed guard that stands at their door exists solely at the administrative discretion of the true heirs. If Camilla attempted to push back, William possessed the absolute authority to subject her personal guests, her public relations consultants, and her non-royal family members to the exact same humiliating security audits she had tried to inflict on Catherine's mother. Without the king's unilateral signature to protect her, Camilla's bureaucratic empire collapsed overnight. While William systematically dismantled the administrative scaffolding of Camilla's strategy, Catherine, the Princess of Wales, executed the emotional and visual takeover. Catherine's immense power has always been her uncomplaining sacrifice and her flawless understanding of visual symbolism. She did not need to issue a public statement regarding the security drama, nor did she need to engage in a territorial dispute over palace access. She simply allowed the new protocol to manifest visually, bringing the unmistakable moral authority of her family to the forefront of the monarchy. The visual execution of this new order is devastating in its quiet simplicity. When Carole Middleton now arrives at the heavy stone gates of the Windsor estate, her vehicle is not stopped. The armed Metropolitan Police officers step back and offer a crisp, unhesitating salute, waving Catherine's mother through the checkpoints with the fluid, unimpeded authority of the true royal inner circle. That detail matters immensely. It is a visual broadcast to the entire palace staff, the security forces, and the courtiers about who actually holds the permanent power. The contrast is breathtakingly brutal. While the mother of the future queen breezes through the gates with absolute VIP diplomatic clearance, the Queen Consort's hand-picked associates and extended family are forced to wait in line. They are subjected to rigorous vetting, their digital passes are heavily scrutinized, and their access is strictly confined to secondary areas. Camilla is forced to watch as her own people are treated as temporary visitors, while the woman she tried to evict is permanently embedded into the very architecture of the institution. It is a total institutional erasure of Camilla's long-term legacy plan, executed without a single word being spoken out of turn. Furthermore, this silent perimeter is being strictly respected and enforced by the old guard of the palace, most notably by Princess Anne. As the ultimate keeper of royal discipline, Anne has fully aligned with William's strict adherence to protocol. Anne recognizes that William is utilizing the rules to protect the crown's future, ensuring that the legacy of the late Queen Elizabeth and Princess Diana is honored through the fierce protection of Catherine. The unified front between the Prince of Wales and the Princess Royal guarantees that Camilla's shadow court will remain permanently locked out of the core monarchy. The ultimate tragedy for Camilla is that she spent her entire life playing a highly sophisticated game of personal strategy. She manipulated the narrative, weathered decades of public outrage, and maneuvered through scandals to place a crown upon her own head. She believed that winning the heart of the king was enough to secure her absolute supremacy. But she failed to realize that the House of Windsor survives not by indulgence, but by ruthlessly cutting away anything that threatens its permanent stability. She discovered too late that true power does not come from proximity to the throne. It comes from controlling the boring, complex machinery of the institution. Camilla reached for the ultimate lever of state power to isolate her rival, only to discover that the final, winning move belonged to the son of the woman she had tried to erase. She is now trapped in a gilded cage of her own making, surrounded by the undeniable evidence that the moment the current reign ends, her illusion of power will vanish into the administrative archives forever. When the final transition of the crown inevitably occurs, the world will not see a dramatic confrontation. They will simply see a woman being quietly guided through a side door, driving away toward an isolated retirement, while William, Catherine, and the Middleton family stand firmly at the center of the royal future. What do you think about Prince William's brilliant use of administrative protocol to protect his family? Do you believe the silent wars behind the palace walls are finally coming to an end? Let us know your thoughts in the comments below, and make sure to subscribe and turn on notifications so you never miss our upcoming forensic deep dives into the hidden mechanics of the British monarchy.